And now for a taste of things to come.
A great slam and then some. It's on!
It's time for the new GameOn podcast. We're celebrating our favorite games.
Falcon Punch!
Mamma mia!
Finish him!
It's a little bit of the old,
You're good, but I'm better.
a little bit of the new,
I am assuming direct control.
and everything in between.
But enough talk! How about you?
Let's get things started.
Get more from your gaming habit with Jeff Johnson.
Game on! Game on! Game on!
And it's time. I am Jeff Johnson, the host of the new GameOn podcast, episode 8, and we are bringing it finally to an end, the end of the top 100 games I've ever played list. This is part 4, and if you've missed the earlier parts, you'll have a chance to go through those again if you want. They are all available on our Spreaker and on our blog, JJ Plays Everything. Those parts cover every game from number 100 to number 21. Today, we're covering the top 20 games on the list. And we're only doing 20 games this episode to give the time needed to discuss all of those games. As you know from previous episodes, I have a 45-minute time limit to go through all these. If I hit the 45-minute time limit this time around and we haven't gone through all the games, I'm actually just going to start another file and we're going to keep going. So just bear with me if that happens. It might take a couple of minutes to just sort of reset it and go again, but here we go. So, again, the quick notes about the list, basically games that I haven't played are not on the list. So stuff like Red Dead Redemption 2, The Last of Us, the most recent God of War game for PS4, Final Fantasy VII Remake, none of those are on here. This list is also ever-changing, so if a great game comes across my desk in the future, if I get a chance to play one of those awesome games, it could possibly be added. And a few honorable mentions were added recently because of that. And replayability is a big factor in this list. If I'm willing to play a game over and over again, and have played a game multiple times, that factors into play here. Alright, no more stalling, no more delays, this is it. The final 20 games on the top 20 game list, and we're starting with number 20, Pokemon Shield for the Nintendo Switch. So this is the newest installment in the Pokemon series. It is a fantastic game. There's a lot of people who sort of have downplayed this game, complaining about the whole fact that it doesn't have every single Pokemon in the game. Well, I hate to break it to you guys, there hasn't been every single Pokemon in a Pokemon game since the very beginning. Yes, you can't bring in every single Pokemon into this game, but are you really going to play over 800 different Pokemon in a single game? I don't think so. Basically, what you've got here is great graphics, fun game to play, and also it introduces the wild area, which to me has been one of the most immersive things that I have seen in a Pokemon game in a very long time. Plus, one of the things that are coming out for this game very soon is the Shield and Sword expansion pass. So instead of seeing a game like Pokemon Platinum being released, or Pokemon Emerald, or Pokemon Crystal, like a third installment in the same generation, we have ourselves an expansion through DLC being added to this game, not for the same price as a whole brand new game. Granted, if you buy both the Shield and Sword expansion pass, it does equal the cost of a brand new game, so keep that in mind. But focusing more on the gameplay of this game, it is, without a doubt, one of the most cinematic versions of a Pokemon game that I've seen in the entire series. I mean, there are some games in the series that I haven't played, like the Mystery Dungeon games. I just couldn't get into them. They weren't my thing. This one is a core Pokemon series game. It's solid in how it's played. It's very accessible at all ages. I know for a fact that both my 4-year-old and 7-year-old were capable of beating this game and were kept entertained throughout the entire way. Just like I was kept entertained for the months of time that I spent playing it. And that was either with collecting the different Pokemon that appear, or with basically evolving them, or leveling them up, or just going through and discovering everything that is in this game and trying to find all the different Pokemon that are there. I have not caught every single thing that is in this game, but I am very close, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. It is solid. And if you haven't played Pokemon Shield and Sword yet, be sure to pick that up if you've got a Switch. It is fantastic. And without a doubt, one of the best Pokemon games ever released. Number 19 on the list, Final Fantasy VII for the PS1. If you've been playing the Final Fantasy VII Remake, oh man, you guys are lucky. I don't have a PS4. I haven't had a chance to play it. I know it's a timed exclusivity deal, so I've got about a year until I can experience that on Xbox One, or if they choose to release it on Xbox Series X, I'm kind of hooped. But if it does come for Xbox One, I'm looking forward to playing it when it does get there. Or maybe, super cheap if I ever buy a PS4. So, let's talk about Final Fantasy VII. This is the game that is single-handedly responsible for me going into the PlayStation camp. Basically, seeing all the trailers for it when it was first coming out, the impressions on little Jeffrey while watching those trailers and wanting to get a chance to play this game, I had to do it. I had to give this game a go. I was a huge fan of the Final Fantasy series before it made the jump to PlayStation, and it brought me right along with it. So, I can thank Final Fantasy VII for introducing me to PlayStation. I can thank it for introducing me to all the different wonderful Square RPGs that I would go on to play on that system, and it really set the bar. It changed how RPGs were done for years to come, given the FMV cut sequences, the active time battle system, the perspectives, the graphics, the moves that you could use, the summons, everything that was the standard for RPGs for many years was because of this game. And I was hooked. I spent weeks playing it when it first came out. Months later, I spent weeks playing it again. It's been a few years since my last playthrough of this game, but I think I've played through it now probably about 4 different occasions and never get bored every single time because it is a solid RPG. Yes, there are some translation issues, but every game at that time had translation issues. It's just how it was. They really sort of streamlined their translation stuff in later years. But the music in this game, the soundtrack, all of it is a gem. It is fantastic. Plus, the secret bosses in the game, like, the Emerald weapon, the Ruby weapon, trying to build up the strategies to take those things on. Also, the Chocobo racing, as painful and infuriating as that could be, little Jeffrey at the time didn't mind, and I really enjoyed just sort of getting the secret items you could get from just all the different aspects of Chocobo breeding. So, all of that plays in as a factor here. There's lots to do and all sorts of things to sort of take on and tackle as you play through this game. Let's move on to number 18, another PlayStation gem. Shortly after I got my hands on Final Fantasy VII, I got a chance to play Castlevania Symphony of the Night for the PlayStation, and I've played it many times since then. I've even bought it a couple of other times. I know when I got an Xbox 360, I remember I was looking for ways to sort of expand my library of games at the time, because I was late to the party with that, and I saw that there was a Konami Arcade Classics collection, and one of the games that was included in that, because there was Super Contra on there and Frogger, but the third game included in that set was Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And yeah, I bought it right away, and have since downloaded it again for the PlayStation 3 as part of the Virtual Console, and have since also downloaded it for the Xbox One, because that's what happens with games with gold. You'll see games that come up that you already own, and you'll download it anyway because it's a fantastic game, and it makes you play it again. So, many times I've played this game. It is the best Castlevania in the entire series, the first one to go to the sort of Metroidvania style. This is the game that sort of coined the term Metroidvania, combining the style of a Metroid game with that Castlevania motif, that Castlevania style. And it's gorgeous to watch, gorgeous to play. The voice acting is corny as all hell, but that just sort of adds to the package here. Because, I mean, let's face it, everybody will remember that die monster line at the beginning. And, you know, the whole, but enough talk, have at you. Like, this game is video game royalty. And I remember doing a video about it a couple of years back with one of our partner channels that we have. Ryan actually got me to do a video on this, and I explain a lot of what goes in there. I'm gonna have to share that link at some time because that probably will explain it better than I can, just sort of off the top of my head. But Castlevania Symphony of the Night is perfection in the Castlevania series. I played many different Castlevanias, and this is the one that I will recommend every time. Number 17, Final Fantasy IV for the Super Nintendo. Back when I was a kid, it was Final Fantasy II, and then obviously, you know, the numbering system got screwed with how things were when they were localized here. I remember when Final Fantasy VII first came out, I was confused at what happened to 4, 5, and 6, because, you know, it was 2 and 3 on the Super Nintendo for me. And then, you know, years later, it sort of clicked in like, oh, right, there were other ones in between that didn't come out over here. But Final Fantasy IV is the best in the Final Fantasy series for me, and I go back to it many times. I actually went back to it when I picked up the Final Fantasy IV Complete Collection on PSP, and then actually went back and played it again. In fact, I think I probably played through the whole game in about 5 times. I'm amazed that I got to do another one in my adult lifetime, because let's face it, my free time is nowhere near as free as it used to be as a kid. But Final Fantasy IV's cast of characters, this is one of the first games where Final Fantasy IV goes from just being that sort of, oh look, I'm an RPG, go kill monsters, to, hey, we've got characters, we're telling a story. I'm enthralled, let's go. So, all the characters, there are some throwaway characters, let's be honest, but there was in Final Fantasy III, so there was in all the other different games of Final Fantasy. There's always that character you don't like, but they were few and far between here. And typically, when a character was sort of thrown away, a new character was brought in to take their place. And I really, 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 really enjoyed the whole Cecil and Golbez storyline. You know, the Dark Knight going on the path of redemption to become a paladin, and also having his dark brother who basically flips sides more times than the Big Show turns heel. So there's that aspect to it. There's many things in here. Like, this is the game that also sort of introduced the idea of summoning monsters. I'm sure there was another Final Fantasy before this that had summon monsters. I don't care. This is the one that introduced it to me. And I really like that the fact that you had to beat a lot of the larger monsters for them to actually join your party. So in that regard, like, the village of summons was really cool. I know I'm sort of messing up the name of what that village is, and quite frankly, it's been a while, but it stood out to me. And there are some aspects of this game that sort of have you questioning, like, what is going on here? Like, taking a lunar whale to the moon and to fight against the great evil that is there. And Bahamut lives on the moon, so you gotta fight him to get his summon. But honestly, it's this kind of zaniness that happens that shows you just how far an RPG can go. And Final Fantasy IV definitely did that. Next on the list, number 16, we're going a different direction here. Mortal Kombat 2 for the Super Nintendo. This is, without a doubt, one of my favorite fighting games of all time. And what stands out to me, I remember the sort of build up to this game. Like, I saw the ads going into it. I saw the articles in all the different magazines I would read, like EGM and like, Electronic Gaming Monthly back then. But, even Nintendo Power talked about this game. And it is Mortal Kombat perfection in a 2D level. And I mean, it wasn't until many years later, because I mean, it sort of hit a peak with Mortal Kombat 2, and Mortal Kombat 3 came out, and it was okay, but it wasn't Mortal Kombat 2. And then all the games after that in the series came out, it's just like, oh my god, these are not doing it for me. But then, you know, the Mortal Kombat came out for Xbox 360, I believe that was Mortal Kombat 9, and that's when the series sort of started to really pick up again. But Mortal Kombat 2, Like, I have very strong memories of going to the arcades to play this game. Very strong memories of trying to master all the different fatalities that are involved in this game, because there's a ton of characters. And back then, trying to find secret characters was a lot like urban legends, because you knew they were there, but you didn't know exactly how to unlock them. And it took the gaming magazines to sort of take the mystique out of that and find them. But I remember trying to take on Jade and take on Smoke and take on Noob Saibot and getting my butt kicked every time and just spending so much time on the SNES version trying to beat these things. It was unreal. To me, having characters hidden behind these walls that you had to find was unreal. And I couldn't believe it. And for myself, another aspect of this game was just having the opportunity to play this game sort of connected me with other people. I remember going to a birthday party once, and, we all were sort of just kids at the time playing out in the fields and stuff, and I got bored with it. So I went inside, and I saw that the boy that I went to his birthday party for, his brother and his friends were playing Mortal Kombat 2. So I go and join them, and I start using all these different fatalities that I had been practicing, including the Kintaro fatality with Shang Tsung. And these guys never even heard of these things happening. And they were like, whoa! And so, they kept me there to show them this stuff. And that stands out to me. Like, the fact that I could be sort of united with these people of different age groups over a game, that stood out. That was it for me. This game's flawless. Number 15, Metroid Fusion for the Game Boy Advance. So, there's going to be one other Metroid appearing on this list. I'm pretty sure you know which one it is. But Metroid Fusion really stands out to me as well, because, the thing about Metroid Fusion was it was a great handheld game. And it channeled what Super Metroid does for the Super Nintendo into this handheld environment, this handheld world. And for me, being able to take all the greatness that is Super Metroid on the road with me, it's sold. Bring me in. My brother really was the one who sort of introduced this one to me. Like, he got into it before I did, and then I jumped into it after he was done with it. And the other aspect about this game was the element of horror that was included into this. Like, if you remember my thing about Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, I love the fact that you couldn't predict where Nemesis was going to be the first time you played it. It's very similar to the SAX in this game. And it's that aspect of the game that adds to it, because while you're doing all of the exploration of this great Metroid labyrinth, this Metroidvania, if you will, you also have that sort of, basically the hair is standing on the back of your neck, wondering when the SAX is going to show up again, and when you're going to have to hide and avoid this thing. And that just makes this an incredible package. Number 14, Shadow of the Colossus for the PS2. Shadow of the Colossus is a masterpiece. It is a gem of a game. I didn't get to play it the first time around for PS2, mainly because it sort of fell under my radar. That's the best way I can put it. And shame on me at the time for not getting into it then. But I did download it for the PS3 through Virtual Console. Actually, I don't think it was for Virtual Console at the time, but I remember they re-released it for the PS3. And I downloaded it, and I played it, and I couldn't stop playing it. Like, it's a minimalist story, is the best way to put it, because, basically, you take your girlfriend, basically, to this temple, and are told you have to kill all of these colossi to, basically, save her, and then you go. And you go to the different places that these colossi are, and every single one of them takes a different way to beat them. And I remember the first one, I was struggling just like, okay, how do I do this? I couldn't figure it out. It's just this massive beast that you have to scale and go from there. And then it's like, okay, well, that's what the rest of these are going to be like. Nope. Every single fight from then on was different. And it just is this fantastic story to tell. My favorite one by far being the flying Colossus. The one you have to sort of get it to get your attention. You have to make it get its attention, and then it dive bombs you, and you have to grab onto it and take to the skies. And that aerial battle is so fantastic. It is incredible. Every battle in this game is incredible, and it's definitely worth your time to give it a go. Number 13. Let's talk about Red Dead Redemption for the Xbox 360, or even the PS3 for some of you. Red Dead Redemption, when I first was looking at it, I was thinking, okay, this is Grand Theft Auto with horses, basically. I was far from the truth on that one, because the story that is told in this game is incredible. The elements that are in this game, like I was an old country western fan. I remember the John Wayne movies. Bonanza was another show that I used to watch. Yes, I know I'm aging myself talking about this, but I grew up with that stuff with my parents, and we watched it, and I really enjoyed that. And Gunsmoke was another game that, the only game I can really remember that gave me that sort of western vibe when I was playing it. Red Dead Redemption took that into the modern era, and Rockstar really, really hit it out of the park with just their elements of storytelling, just the elements of gameplay that are involved, the random quests that you can take, the random missions, the people that you help along the way. It is an incredible game. And I mean, I'm not going to be selling anybody on this, because anybody who's wanted to play Red Dead Redemption has played Red Dead Redemption and knows this game is definitely worth your time. I am hoping that Red Dead Redemption 2 is just like that, because if it is, I'm going to be having another game on this list. All right, 2 more for this section. We've got number 12, Super Metroid for the SNES. Now, I was talking about Super Metroid a little bit earlier when I was talking about Metroid Fusion. Super Metroid is a classic. It is one of those games that if you wanted to just sort of speed run through the game, you could. If you want to go in depth and try to find every single item in there, you could as well. But Super Metroid's another one of those games that, again, minimalist storytelling happening here, because basically, as you're playing the game, there isn't much of a story being told aside from that introductory section. You go to the planet, you explore, you find the weapons you need, you fight these gigantic, gorgeous bosses. Kraid especially, like the Kraid boss was incredible. And one thing I can remember as a little Jeffrey with this was going into Norfair and fighting Crocomire for the first time. And that thing scared the hell out of me. Like, even not just the fighting of it, but when you actually beat the thing, when you beat Crocomire, and it pops back out again as a skeletal form, that is creepy as all hell, and it's unreal. It is absolutely unreal. And the ending segment of this game really makes it what it is, because you think you're going into another traditional Metroid Mother Brain boss fight, and you beat the form of the brain in the jar, and all of a sudden it turns into that Mother Brain T-Rex form that you have to fight. And that whole entire sequence is just incredible. Like, fighting against the Super Mother Brain, then the baby Metroid coming to save you, and then it gets killed, and you get all the power from it to use the Metroid beam, and like that section, I was floored by it as a kid. And again, I've played this game many, many times since it came out. It is an absolute gem. And finally, number 11, another Super Nintendo gem, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past is one of the best Zelda games ever. It's simple as that. It is one of the best Zelda games ever. It is fantastic, glorious. I'm using a lot of descriptive words, but it's not really sort of helping to describe this. 2 full worlds to explore. Amazing, like, the dungeons are well laid out. There's a lot of difficulty to it, but at the same time, you can overcome that difficulty. I ended up I remember when I was actually playing this game, when I first was giving it a go, I was using a Game Genie to play through to sort of help me out and get through it. And long story short of it, something went wrong. I don't know what it was, but the game froze. And because there was an error with the Game Genie as well, my file got deleted. So once that happened, I had to restart again. And I'm thinking to myself, like back then I was sort of floored by it because it sucks that happened. But that, if you think about it, it's like, oh no, I get to play Legend of Zelda Link to the Past in its entirety again. Oh no. But there's a lot of good to this game. It is a classic. It is definitely worth your time. And the storytelling in it is great. It really sort of sets the stage for a lot of the different Zelda games we see that come up later on. Okay, we're going into the top 10, but first I need a bit of an air break. We'll be right back. I am Jeff Johnson. This is the new Game On podcast.
You're listening to Game On.
Tremble in fear at our 3 different types of ships. This is Morbo, the newscaster. Today's forecast, doom, unless you're listening to Game On.
The new Game On podcast continues. Here's Jeff.
All right, we got 20 minutes to do this, so let's get into it. The final top 10 of the top 100 games I've ever played. So right off the bat, we've got Mass Effect 2 for the Xbox 360 and the PS3. I played it for the Xbox 360, and I actually ended up playing all 3 of the Mass Effect games back to back. Again, I was a little late on the party on this one. I played through all of Mass Effect because I wanted to see what the big hubbub was on Mass Effect 2. I started playing Mass Effect 2, and everything about this game is done extremely well. Side quests matter. Planets matter. Characters matter. Every member of your party members matter. Everything about this game plays into that final stretch of the game, the suicide mission, the one that you have to take on and go against the collectors and save the members of your crew and basically stop the Reaper's latest plot to sort of take over the galaxy. It is incredible. It's everything about this. The music is good. The fighting in this game, like, you know, basically the gun fighting, they drastically improved it from Mass Effect 1. Playing through this game made me basically decide that I was going to pre-order Mass Effect 3 immediately out of the gate and get it right off the get-go because I needed to see how the rest of this story ended. And I mean, the story of Commander Shepard is probably one of the best sci-fi tales in all of video games. Like, that is the best way I can put it. Like, if you have not played Mass Effect 2, don't worry about Mass Effect. I mean, yes, you should know the whole story, and I would say play Mass Effect before Mass Effect 2, but Mass Effect 2 is an absolute must. You have to play this game. Number 9 on the list, Pokemon Blue version. So we're going back to the Game Boy for this one. Pokemon Blue was a game that I ended up playing for years. Mainly because of the fact that, one, it was the first in the Pokemon series and basically started them all. And I remember this was in the height of basically this whole Pokemon mania that was going on. This talk of Pokemon being a fad, no, it wasn't a fad. It stayed for years and years and years to come. But this was the height of its popularity until Pokemon Go came along. So, Pokemon Blue, and my brother ended up getting Pokemon Red as well. So basically the two of us, we're watching the show, we're following along with everything, we're getting the merchandise, we're playing the game, and I just got addicted to it. Also, I had a couple of friends who were playing the game as well, so I remember sitting on the buses with them while traveling back and forth between schools to go to my shop classes and my home ec classes, and basically trading Pokemon on the buses and having ourselves versus games using the link cable. Like, this is the game that basically made it so that this whole idea of having your own version of the game compared to somebody else's version of the game and then competing your teams against each other, this was the game that made that happen. And it did it well. Yes, there were flaws, although there are some flaws in this game I really like the missing number glitch, or the way to get Muse, but it is, at the same time, is entirely worth it. It hasn't aged well, and I mean, if somebody were to go back to it and want to play it, I would suggest going with Fire Red or Leaf Green that came out for the Game Boy Advance, but they are classics in their own right. Pokemon Blue, Pokemon Red, in my case, Pokemon Blue, it's definitely worth your time. All right, next up, number 8, Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation. Now, I can't say Metal Gear Solid the Twin Snakes for the GameCube because I never actually played it. I still want to borrow it from one of my friends who has it. But Metal Gear Solid was a game that I ended up playing probably about 8 times in a row. And I even reached the point where I was transcribing the cutscenes. Yes, I can't believe I was doing that. But it was sort of like the height of my time as wanting to be a writer, and I was really inspired by the style of the back and forth of dialogue between the characters. And for me, I've never been into the sort of shooting game before. I had never been into, this was around the time when games like GoldenEye were out. And, I mean, my closest thing to something like this would have been a Doom at the time, because I really liked Doom. I enjoyed playing Doom and Doom 64. You saw Doom 64 earlier in the list. But Metal Gear Solid took that whole idea of this action-packed shooting style game, this espionage style, which I had never even heard of, and put it right in front of me with this gigantic story. And a very technical story too, with mechs and the cyborg ninja and unique, basically, henchmen who were almost like supervillains in a way. And it was amazing. I had never seen anything like this. And my first taste of it was actually through playing it through a demo. Again, basically getting a chance to try it through a demo, play the opening stretch of that game, and it sold me on it. I had to have this game. And it led to me basically being connected to this series for life. The only one in this series at this point I haven't played are like Metal Gear Survive and the Metal Gear Solid 5 game. I played a little bit of Peace Walker. It's okay. But any mainline Metal Gear, aside from 5, I have given a go. Metal Gear Solid is the reason for that. And so, there we go. Metal Gear Solid, number 8. Let's move into number 7, another PlayStation gem, Final Fantasy Tactics. That Wii Graph Velius fight is garbage. It's absolute hot trash. And my love for this game made me restart the entire game because of that fight and do it again. And I didn't care because I wanted to see what happened after that. And since then, I have played through this game many, many times over. I'd say probably about 6 times over, at least. And the big reason for that is because, one, it's got that strategy RPG element, that turn-based strategy RPG element that I love to talk about, which I mentioned in games like Front Mission 3 earlier in the list. And it has an incredible class system. Like, the class system in this game is unheard of. Like, basically every single class has a wide variety of different skills and abilities that you can learn. You can also use a mediator class to basically get monsters to join you, and the monsters have their own style of moves. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It is solid. That is the best way to put this. This is the first real tactical RPG that I had that really sort of kept me playing, except for one. And we're going to go into that one right now. Number 6 on the list, Ogre Battle Limited Edition. And you might have heard a theme earlier in this episode. This is one of the battle themes from Ogre Battle. Ogre Battle is this amazing, amazing game. For a lot of people, I know this is more of a niche game for them, but I spend so much time with this game. Basically just building the different units. You can have up to 100 different men into your army at one time. And basically I just went with it. I wanted to see many of the different endings that were here. And that's because the game has a large alignment system, a constitution system, a reputation system, like everything that goes into this game for just how you go about fighting the enemies and liberating the towns. There is much variety to be had here, and it's a gem. It is an absolute gem. It is the Ogre Battle Limited Edition for the PlayStation. It does have its issues, though, in the fact that you have to deal with obscene load times to put it all in. But if you can sort of grin and bear that, it is definitely worth your time. Or you could just play the Super Nintendo version, because it's a lot faster, but the dialogue and the graphics are not as clean as what is in that PlayStation version. Either way, both are worth anybody's time. Since I played music for number 6 there, why don't we do that again for the rest of the list? So, number 5 on this list... Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo. This game is a gem. Yeah, you can hear the intro going behind me, and it's got me wanting to play the game again. I actually sat down the other day and just played the original Super Mario Brothers again the other day. And I mean, yes, it's not Super Mario World, but Super Mario World was the first taste of the Super Nintendo for me, and it took one of my favorite games, one of my absolute favorite games, which we'll be talking about, and turned it up to 11. Basically, introducing the SNES graphics, having multiple ways that you could beat levels, multiple ways out of levels, and yeah, there is a lot to see in Super Mario World. Nintendo knocked it out of the park with this, and this is probably one of the reasons you see Super Mario Maker to this day having the success that it does, because of games like Super Mario World, like the original Mario Brothers, like any Mario mainline game that they've made in the 2D style, because they're so inventive with it, and they let people be inventive with it with Mario Maker. But Super Mario World, like, the 8 Koopa Kids are in there, just like they were in Super Mario Bros. 3, and their boss battles are unique and interesting and fun to play. It's Super Mario World. I don't think I have too much else that I have to say on this one. Super Mario World's an absolute gem, and one of the things about it is that ending fight. Like, basically, that ending boss battle with Bowser. So, getting into that fight, and, every fight before that sort of led up to this, and you're on the top of Bowser's castle, the lightning is going in the background, Bowser is flying over top, and you have to beat him to save the princess. Like, this basically took Bowser fights to a whole new level at the time, and they've kept building on that in every game since. So let's move on to number 4 on our list. Zelda fans will know. This is the opening theme for The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. So, Ocarina of Time has a special place in our channel's history because it is one of the few games that we have actually beaten on the channel. Before I took down every single video, we had an entire playthrough of Ocarina of Time through Shay Plays. It actually took us 7 years to do it, which is ironic because the game covers 7 years of time, and I'm actually going through all those videos again very soon to basically review whether or not I can upload them all or not. Screw you, Kappa. Seriously, lots of videos to go through because of that. But Ocarina of Time, it was a game that was a part of my wife's childhood. That's why it was the first Shay Plays game to be done. And for myself, it was a part of my childhood, my brother's childhood. I remember playing through it in its entirety with my brother. I know he ended up doing a playthrough of it himself. I ended up doing a playthrough of it myself, and even tried to play through it again years later. And this is a game that I definitely plan to introduce to my kids, let them have a playthrough of it as they get older as well. So, Ocarina of Time is the king of the Zelda games. I know there's going to be an argument for Breath of the Wild on this one. That's on my list of games that I haven't played. At least I can say I haven't given a serious play. I've probably given it like 15 minutes, so I really can't give that a good rating. But the replayability here, the storytelling that was here, this set the stage for all Zeldas to come, and it also set the stage for many different adventure games to come after this. Because, let's face it, it's Zelda: Ocarina of Time. It is fantastic. Number 3 on the list, this one's going to surprise people. You're not going to recognize the song unless you played this game. It's Tetris Attack for the Super Nintendo. Now, I know there's going to be people who are like, oh, what about that Panel de Pon? I mean, yeah, okay. Panel de Pon actually came out on Nintendo Switch's SNES Virtual Library today. It's the original version of Tetris Attack. To me, Tetris Attack is not Tetris Attack without Yoshi and all the Super Mario World 2 characters. Although I'm probably going to play through Panel de Pon when I see it on there later tonight. Tetris Attack, I got addicted to this game. Because of it, I got addicted to Pokemon Puzzle League as well. But Tetris Attack is a gem. The story mode of it is fun. The puzzles in this game are great. It's bright. It's colorful. There's a lot of different modes that you have to play through the game between, like, basically the limited move puzzle solving, the actual, basically the time limit ones that you have to go through, the different, like the actual adventure mode in here. But it was versus mode where this game really shined, because both myself and my cousins got into this game right around the same time, and we had endless battles with this game, often leading to times 4 combinations, times 5, times 6, times 7 combinations. It got nuts. It got absolutely nuts with this game, and I have played it ever since because of that. It is glorious. It is one of the best puzzle games I've ever played. It is one of the best games I have ever played, and it's worth your time. All right, 2 more classics for you, then we're wrapping it up for the day. Here we go. Here is number 2 on the list. Mario Bros. 3 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. The best Mario game of all time. This is it. There is none better. There's a lot of great Mario games. I'm not saying they aren't great, but this game holds the place for me. This is it. This is the biggest game that has been a part of my life for many, 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 many years, because I remember playing through the game as a kid. I needed Game Genie to help me get through it because it's so darn hard. In recent years, I remember beating this game again without any sort of cheat codes, without anything like that, for one of our Extra Life 24-hour marathons. It actually started the tradition for me to beat a game during those marathons. And aside from that, for years, I was involved in basically tournaments with this game. Many, many, many tournaments with this game. It seemed like all the Lions clubs in Ontario kind of were on the same page with Nintendo tournaments, where they would have 5-minute score attack challenges, and whoever basically separated out by age group. You had 5 minutes to get as high of a score as possible. I went from town to town getting little trophies just of me getting the highest score on this game. And because of that, I would practice with this game many, many times. It was years later, being involved in the Extra Life team here in Cranbrook, that I reintroduced score attacks in our community as a way of raising funds for Extra Life. And of course, I got into the score attack thing again because of this. Mario 3. It has been with me since I was a little boy. It is there with me today, and I guarantee you I'm going to be playing it through again another time soon. Super Mario Bros. 3, number 2 on our list. All right, here it is. Number 1. If you know me, you knew this game was coming. And unfortunately, I really don't have much time to talk about it. So let's get to this. Chrono Trigger for the Super Nintendo. Chrono Trigger for the Super Nintendo is one of those games that mastered storytelling. This was Square Enix before Square Enix was Square Enix. It was a dream team project between Squaresoft, Enix, and also bringing in Akira Toriyama, who was working with Enix, of course, but also from Dragon Ball Z fame. Before I even was a big fan of Dragon Ball, this is the game that introduced me to that Dragon Ball style. So, Chrono Trigger has this absolutely fantastic cast of characters. Storytelling is done to a masterful level here, in that Lavos exists as a threat throughout the entire game, but you still have no idea how you're going to be able to beat this challenge, and spend the entire game learning about how it became a part of the Earth, and at the same time, learning how you're going to deal with it. Everything in this game all connects back to that challenge. How do we save the world from Lavos? And that's where we get to throughout the course of this game. So, the other thing about it is a multiple ending game. So, many times over I've played through it, and I have seen every single ending of this game. On top of that, there's been times where I've just popped it in on a yearly basis just to play through it again. When it came out again for Chrono Trigger DS, for the Nintendo DS, I rebought the game so I could see the new endings and give it a go again, and also see the content that was added in afterwards. Granted, kind of shoehorned in, but there it was. Chrono Trigger is the single greatest RPG of all time, and to me, the greatest game I've ever played. So there we have it. That's it for this week. This is the end of our top 100 list. We resume how we do things next week. So that is all. Thank you for joining us. Been a great show. Glad to have you along. We are at the end of our episode. Be sure to check us out, Spreaker, Facebook, YouTube.com/GameOnGNT. I'm Jeff Johnson, signing off.